I gotta say, this is a weird film for the summer movie season, just to drop in there. It's almost like they knew it wasn't going to perform at the box office. It just needed a theatrical release. So they were like, well, why don't we put it there? I would have said, well, why don't you put it maybe, I would have put it in like April, like late spring, so that way it could have capitalized a little bit more on Emma Stone's Oscar win, bleeding straight into this. Anyway, I'm John Stark from HackMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and this is Kinds of Kindness. This is directed by Yorgos Lanthrimos, and it has audio description deluxe, narrated by Laura Post. I caught this on Hulu. They actually uploaded the audio description to this film, day and date. Isn't that amazing? Like, I shouldn't have to celebrate something like that, but it's amazing that they did that. Because so many times Hulu fumbles the ball. I don't know if the first Omen even has. I just gave up on that at a certain point. I was just like, no, I'm tired of trying to find audio description for Fox titles on. Anyway, but yeah, it's amazing. Anyway, so to celebrate the Disney brand, I've got my Lion King shirt on, got a purple baseball cap and black sunglasses. So let's talk about Kinds of Kindness. Film stars Jesse Plemons, Emma Stone, Willem Dafoe, Margaret Qualley, Chou, and Joe Alwyn. I think that's pretty much the main cast. And it's three parts. It's three completely different stories sandwiched together with a very, very thin connective tissue. A very thin connective tissue. Just almost in and of itself a spoiler. So that would be the one thing I'm not talking about. I will tell you that there's a very thin thread of connective tissue where they're like, did you pick up on what we're doing? And I was like, kind of. But I still think these are like three. I think Yorgos wanted to make short films and he put them together. And it was like, here we go. Here's three short films that I made. Loosely connected. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Okay, sir. You're a good director. I mean, I don't really care. You can make short films and put them together. Wes Anderson just made a whole bunch for Netflix last year. So, you do you, bro. The problem with short films, though, is that they're sort of each individual films. And each one of these is a different thing in and of itself, but we're expected to see Wes Anderson when he directed the all those little Roald Dahl movies for Netflix. They were all released separately. I think maybe they released them all together at one point. They were like, just in case you're not clicking on them because you don't know what these are separately, well, we'll smash them together, even though they have no connective tissue. Yeah, so they could all sort of stand on their own. You could just watch Poison. You could just watch The Ratcatcher, and then see and then judge for yourself what you thought those were like. And he used a lot of the same technique in each one. So, and a lot of the same cast had overlap, but they changed it up. Here, he's got basically the same thing. This has very sort of like a very similar style to each one of these stories, and he's using the same cast. A lot of these, I believe every cast member that I said is represented in every story in some way. Some with larger parts than others, depending on the story. Pretty much always Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone are leads. The others are the ones that kind of fluctuate depending on how the story needs them. But I would say they always have quite a bit to do in the story. It's very weird, but then again, it's Yorgos, so I feel like people are okay with that, and they know that going into it. And they're like, yeah, of course it's weird. It's like almost 3-hour, compacted, three short films compacted into one. We expect We expect nothing else from Yorgos at this point. And if you know that going in, fine. I've seen a lot of people who are like, Jesse Plemons should get an Oscar nomination for this. And it's like, that's debatable. Because the problem is, once again, it's 3 films. So you have to go, is each performance Oscar worthy? Or because it's not like he's really playing 3 characters in the way that when you look at a film where somebody is cast, and I hate to use the example, but it's so well known. Like what Mike Myers does in Austin Powers, when he is actually playing multiple characters in the same film, you don't look at that and go, wow, that's an Oscar nominee. I mean, maybe we should have, considering how iconic those characters have become, but and how hard and transformative he was for each and every one of them. But to look here and be like, well, Jesse Plemons is doing... No, he's not. He's playing a character in a short film. They are stopping. They're shooting a second thing. He is playing a character and then stopping and then shooting a third thing where he's playing a character. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so as from an actor's mindset, as somebody who's done acting before, this would be really easy to do unless Yorgos's film shooting schedule was such that he was literally shooting different scenes from different shorts all at the same time. Like, unless he's requiring Jesse Plemons, unless they're like on set and he's like, okay, well, we're going to shoot this scene from the first part, and then later today we're going to shoot this scene from the third part. So Jesse is constantly having to think about character switches and like the different ways he makes himself change. That would be the only way that you could actually praise this performance. Otherwise, he's just shot 3 different films and then wound it all together. So unless you're deeply familiar with the way that Kinds of Kindness was shot, it's really hard to get behind any of these actors in terms of their performances, because at the end of the day, there's going to be one that you probably don't like as much as the others. And we only get just so many slots. He already has an Oscar nomination. I would not nominate him for this. I'm sorry. If he finds his way back into the Oscar conversation, I'm fine with that, but I want it to be for something that he's actually deserving of. And he keeps getting these things like Killers of the Flower Moon. He was like milk in that. He just kind of is. He's like the least interesting thing about Killers of the Flower Moon. He just kind of shows up and he's like, hey, I'm an FBI agent. Okay. It's Civil War. He's in it for like, I don't know, what, 5 minutes? And I think the reason why people liked it there is because they're like, wow, he could play a villain. Yeah. I believed he had the range to play a villain. I don't know that I need to give him an Oscar nomination for it, because I think we've seen stronger villains, but he was memorable in Civil War. And then here, yeah, I like some of what he's doing. So I think he kind of arguably disappears in the third act. I didn't really pick up what he was putting down. It was just kind of, he's not as useful in the third act of the film. So the first and second parts are the parts where he shines. Arguably Emma Stone kind of takes a backseat during the first part of the film and then rises in the third. So they kind of trade it off. Jesse Plemons comes in hot in the first part of the film and you notice him right away. Maybe that's what's happening, is a lot of people just watched the first one and they fell asleep. They were like, wow, he was really good. And it's like, did you watch all 3 of them? Because he doesn't really do anything in the third one. Yeah, it would just be, it'd be so weird for me to see him nominated for this. Or Emma, even, for that matter, considering how many times she's been nominated. It's just like, it's unnecessary. She just won. Leave her alone. You know, Willem Dafoe, he's an excellent actor, but again, the levels at which he performs here are just, they're all over the place. And he's supporting too in this, which makes it even harder, because it's like he has these odd roles that are totally different from each other, and he's never the lead. So, Margaret Qualley has, again, varying levels of screen time. Hong Chau's varying levels of screen time, and Joe Alwyn has varying levels of screen time. It's an interesting experience. The first story revolves around a guy who works for a guy played by Jesse Plemons, who works for a wealthy businessman played by Willem Dafoe, who has basically provided for him everything in life and been like a father figure to him in many ways, and they've developed this relationship, and he just wants Jesse Plemons to do this one thing. It's a big ask. I won't spoil it, but it's a big ask. And Jesse's like, no, I can't do it. I can do literally, I can do anything else for you, but I can't do this. I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. And he feels really good about his decision. And then what Yorgos explores is that feeling, that really sort of like insecurity that you get sometimes when you're like, I made a choice, and you're like, oh my God, was it the right choice? Oh shit, it was the wrong choice. Oh, can I fix it? Can I go back? Can I make a different choice? Oh my God. And so he just gets like, he keeps going into this like rabbit hole of, oh, fuck me, I made the wrong choice. And it's just, and like his desperation to kind of be allowed to get an opportunity to make the choice again, and kind of leading him off the deep end there. So it was a very interesting story. I actually like the first part the best. I actually like the second part too. The second part was entertaining. It involves Jesse Plemons plays a cop whose wife was missing for a while, and then when she comes back, she's different, but nobody believes him. And he's like, wait a minute, she doesn't know what my favorite song is. Everyone knows what my favorite song is. So, one of those like, is she a body snatcher? And he dives into paranoia here too. So there's sort of that connective paranoia thread, although it's a different kind of paranoia. This one is like, who am I living with? Who are you? Where's my cell phone? He won't eat any food because he's worried about, who she is. And Emma gets far more screen time in the second half than she does in the first one. The first one, she kind of plays the love interest for Jesse Plemons, who just kind of gets delivered some weird news and just really just kind of pieces out at that point. It's just not really a huge part of the story. So, second part, she's a lot because she has to play this role where it's like, am I unnerving or am I not unnerving? Do I know I'm unnerving? I'm sure she asked Yorgos like 1,000 questions about this role. And I like the second half. I like how it plays out. It's very weird. It starts off really weird too. The little transition from Act 1 to Act 2 I was just like, what? There's a part of there where you're like, what? Okay. And then the third part was my least favorite of the three sections, and one of the reasons why my grade is slightly low. I just didn't like it. I just thought it was kind of involves I don't know, like investigating this. It gets like, it's like two things in one. Emma Stone is off like trying to figure out what happened to these twins, and then at the same time she's having to deal with this again, trying not to spoil, I don't know, home life thing that leads maybe to a cult. I can't really explain the third act to you. It's so weird. It's so bonkers, but it also didn't really make a lot of sense. Like, I kind of got what he was putting down, but at the same time, I was like, this is how you wanted to wrap up the film? I wasn't fully there for that. I was not fully here for it. I did like the first two parts. And I kind of think that if this had been like a part A, part B, sort of like Grindhouse, where you like get an A film and a B film, I think this film would have been a lot stronger. 2 hour runtime, bam bam, kinds of kindness, act one, act two. But I'm sure there's some people that like act three. So maybe I'm wrong. But it's the one thing that kind of pulled the grade down for me. But audio description wise, I don't really know what she can do here, and you're just gonna have to do IMDb because at one point, I don't know what to give. The narration is still ex Laura Post, and what the note that I would give here is, I would have named the actors, because I think part of the gimmick is that it's the same cast being recycled over and over, and they don't really do that here. Now, you can IMDb it and you can look up and see who's playing who over and over among the main cast. Like I said, there are some actors who play bit parts, like a nurse or something that walks into a room, and they're not, you don't need to name those actors because they're just bloop. But for the people who are in all three acts, which are the people that I named, I would say who they are, so that way you can see sort of how they're being used. I think there's such an intentionality behind Yorgos's direction in doing that, and him taking a block of actors and saying, you will play multiple characters across this series, and being able to directly connect, because as blind people, we don't have facial recognition. So in order to fully embrace that in the actual experience in real time, the only way you can really do that is to actually acknowledge who the actor is. It's weird because we don't usually do that unless it's like a cameo and like you're on like Deadpool and Wolverine, and it's like, oh yeah, I get it, that's part of the gag. But here, I think it really is actually part of the gag. I really think that is what that is. I would have named them. I mean, that's just me, but we often talk about, at least on my channel, I try to talk about having been sighted and now being blind. How I always heard the term bridging the gap. And you have to think about sort of like, what is the filmmaker's style? What is he trying to do here? What is the intentionality? What's the point? And I think there has to be something said here about the fact that he is using the same cast. He's not just using, it's not a gag like Mike Myers or Eddie Murphy playing like a billion characters, or Tyler Perry playing a billion characters, where you just like, it's just one actor in all these different roles. It's actually sort of like maybe somebody could sit down and analyze and be like, well, what was the connective tissue for all the characters that Margaret Qualley played? What was the connective tissue for all the characters that Willem Dafoe played? And actually break it down and see, what was the similarities? What were the differences? What is he trying to say? Because I don't think Yorgos just set out to make a film that was just like, meh, I made some short films, here you go. I think there's a purpose to this, and I think part of that purpose involved him needing the same cast for every single film. So maybe would have done that. I'm not like totally. That's not the hill I'm dying on for that. This is not like America Forever for me. But when I'm thinking about like, how could I maybe have made this audio description a little bit better, I'm thinking maybe part of that whole thing is the fact that it's the same ensemble, but they're playing different people in each segment, like completely different characters. It's a different story. We hit the reset button when we move into another chapter. So yeah, maybe that's it. But I liked the first two parts a lot, and the third part was just, it was okay. I didn't hate it. I just didn't really, I was like, I wanted a stronger conclusion. And I just, kind of like The Lobster for me. Like I feel like The Lobster has like starts great, ends poorly. It's not a fan of where the movie progresses. Like, it is kind of like that for me, where it's like, wow, this movie has a lot of promise in the beginning, and then you're like, by the end, you're like, I don't know. But the beginning was really good. And yes, but here it's like the first 2/3 I liked. So it's a little bit longer than The Lobster. Basically, once they leave the place in The Lobster, I kind of was like, I don't know about this. So I'm gonna give Kinds of Kindness a B plus. In general, yeah, I thought it has good acting. It doesn't necessarily have Oscar worthy acting, but it has good acting in it. And I'm interested. I'm intrigued. But it's really hard to look at Poor Things and then follow it up with Kinds of Kindness and be like, yes, Oscars again. No, I think we can skip this one. He'll be fine. He'll make another one. He'll be back at the Oscars. Don't you worry. You know, he's already been there a couple times with The Favorite and Poor Things, so he'll be back. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.